It was one of the most notorious attacks on British troops of the Iraq War. Just a few months after the invasion, before violence levels had surged, 6 RMP soldiers were training Iraqi police at their station in Majar al-Kabir. But the building was surrounded by a mob of around 400 people, and all 6 were killed. Sergeant Simon Hamilton Jewell, Corporal Russell Aston, Corporal Paul Long, Corporal Simon Miller, Lance Corporal Benjamin McGowan Hyde, and Lance Corporal Tom Keyes. In 2006, the Oxford coroner ruled their deaths were unlawful killings on active service, but wrote to the MOD raising concerns about command, communication and vehicles. Now, the family of Corporal Russell Aston have lodged a claim for damages, and relatives of one of his colleagues say they will join that action.
I know nothing will ever bring my amazing son back, but if we can just get that justice and admission of guilt, that we can just, myself, my wife and particularly, can just turn away, close a chapter and try to pick up the threads of a life we once had.
They believe a Supreme Court ruling last month on a separate case about the use of snatch Land Rovers in Iraq opened the way for them to claim under European human rights laws.
It's certainly a change in the law. Of course, everybody in combat realises there is a risk of losing your life. But it's necessary as a result of this judgment for the military to diminish, to restrict that risk as far as is reasonably possible.
This legal claim is based on whether the RMPs were properly equipped. Corporal Miller's family say the men only had 150 rounds of ammunition between them, that they were working with old radios and should have had a satellite phone, and that the vehicles they travelled in weren't up to the job.
They couldn't call for help, they couldn't defend themselves, they couldn't initiate a firefight because they didn't have enough ammunition. Against a mob of about 500 firing RPGs and AK-47s, can anybody physically put themselves and imagine that situation to be in?
10 years on, the families of these 6 men are still searching for closure, something they were denied when murder charges against 2 suspects in Iraq were dropped in 2010.
And James, how has the MOD reacted?
Well, it's not gone into much detail because, of course, there are legal proceedings underway. But in a short statement to us earlier today, they said that their thoughts remain with the families of those who lost their lives in this incident. And they say it's a matter of deep regret that the perpetrators of these appalling murders have not been brought to justice. They say they believe the circumstances in which they took place have been fully investigated. And you do get a sense that the ministry is of a fairly clear view that this has already been fully dealt with, because there is a separate legal attempt. There has been a separate legal attempt to get a public inquiry that is ongoing, and the ministry is also fighting that.
Fully investigated. So what investigation has taken place?
Little more than a year after these deaths, in autumn 2004, a military board of inquiry published its findings on what had happened, its investigation. A Ministry of Defence official has suggested to me that inquiry covers their obligations under European human rights laws, and also that the 10 or so recommendations that they came up with have been actioned. Now, those include, looking at it this afternoon, improvements to command relationships and log keeping, more infantry training for Royal Military Police soldiers, some weapons training. It did find that the level of ammunition was correct, but it recommends scaling of ammunition should be set at battle group level. Interestingly, one of the recommendations in there, also something that is now very commonplace today, is that soldiers should carry morphine in hostile environments.
So what are the family's chances of success?
This is going to be the first test of that Supreme Court judgment. It doesn't guarantee any kind of success. What it does offer them is a potential new route for action. And at the time, the Defence Secretary said that he was concerned about wider implications of the judgment. But at the same time, the lawyer for one of these families has acknowledged that actually they might fall at a hurdle because it's too late to bring action. We're just going to have to see what the courts make of it all.
All right, James, thank you for that.